Hi guys, there has been a lot of discussion on YouTube and Reddit about the strength of Skeletal Reavers as a mapping build, and there has been a ton of people acting like Skeletal Reavers are a really bad mapping build, mostly due to the Minion AI and getting stuck in narrow maps, and that narrow map completely bricked the build, and I won't pretend that Reavers are like a 10 out of 10 mapping build or that it's not annoying as hell when they get stupidly blocked in corridors. It is. It's very annoying. I get just as frustrated as you guys. It's a really horrible feeling and I can't wait for GGG to fix it. But people making them out to be some 3 out of 10 mapping build because of this are either way exaggerating or are playing the build very, very wrong. And I think it's important to decouple the feelings and emotions of annoyingness and clunkiness that people feel when the minions get stuck from the actual power level and the capability of the build, which I think is much higher than people give it credit for because of the annoyingness of it. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. So, to prove this, just today I went and recorded 3 showcases for what would be considered terrible or annoying maps and layouts for minions. First of all, I have a T16 Crypt recorded where I clear it, including a +4 boss difficulty kill in 1 minute and 45 seconds total. I think that speaks for itself. As a second showcase, I have a T15 Mire, which is arguably the worst map in the game currently, at least in my opinion, basically for any character. It's huge with loads of small passages and dead ends. And anyway, I managed to full clear that in 4 minutes and 15 seconds. And finally, I have a T15 Lost Towers clear in 1 minute and 50 seconds. And if you'd just like to watch the showcases and skip me talking, then you can just skip those. There's timestamps, you can just watch the showcases. But in a second, I'll be talking about how to actually improve your mapping as Reavers. And anyway, of course, those 3 showcases, there are builds that could have cleared those maps a little faster, of course. Arsonist, probably a better mapping build, probably could clear those maps just a tiny bit faster. However, those times that I'm able to achieve with Reavers are hardly bad. If anything, those are very good times, really. And in my opinion, easily place Reavers at around 8 out of 10 for mapping if you ignore the feeling of clunkiness. Of course, it's annoying sometimes, it happens, but if you ignore that feeling and evaluate them purely on the results, how quickly they can do the maps, how easily they can do them, which also considering the bossing powers, it makes them an excellent all-rounder, and people making them out to be terrible mappers, I don't think they're right. Anyway, less yapping and some actual advice and real talk on how to improve your Reavers mapping experience. First of all, maybe and not particularly helpful advice, but something to keep in mind is that the best way of improving the feel and clear of Reavers is through scaling your damage. For reference, my Reavers have around 15k sheet DPS while standing in hideout, and with this much damage, even when they get stuck in those awkward corridors in a one-on-one with an enemy mob, they can very quickly plow through them and make an opening for minions to go through. So even when you get stuck with enough damage, the minions do make the way and you can just go through and keep clearing your maps. Now, if your Reavers have like 4 to 5k sheet DPS, which I think is still okay and pretty normal, then yeah, it's going to feel a little bit worse. But, at least then you can tell yourself, right, if I scale a bit more damage, get some more links, get some higher levels of minions gear, it is going to get better. And it does. I'm clearing like T18 maps and I don't feel very much annoyingness anymore because they have just so much damage that even when they get stuck in a one-on-one, they quickly, plow through. I understand that this piece of advice is kind of like, if you're homeless, just stop being homeless, right? Just get more power. But it's just something to keep in mind that the DPS improves the feeling of clunkiness. Anyway, the second piece of advice, and if I were to guess, this is probably the main one that people are doing wrong, and it's what's hurting their clear speed. And you will see this if you watch my videos, so pay attention to this in the showcases. In narrow maps, you should really try to stay ahead of your minions and not in the back. You should run ahead, roll forward, dodging attacks, and minions will either fit through behind you, in the gap, or they will despawn and spawn on you after a few seconds once you've through like the corridor and into the big room. This is way more effective than staying back and waiting for your minions to just clear corridors and following after them. Like, it really speeds it up. Sure, it's technically a bit more dangerous. Of course it is, right? You go in first, it's more dangerous. However, with the recent changes to dodge roll with like the 0px changes, unless you get really unlucky and roll directly into like some freezing enemy or something like that, you're generally fine. As you can see in the videos that I do, you just run through, roll through, your minions will follow and bail you out very, very quickly. So yeah, just pay attention to how I do this in the showcases. If you're feeling that the Reavers are bad in narrow maps, this is probably the main one to pay attention to. Next one, I suggest ignoring white mobs. You know, white mobs in PoE2 are very, very boring. They don't give XP, they don't drop loot, really. They can be ignored, right? If you skip 5 or 10 white mobs and, you know, in like a side room, who cares? It doesn't matter. When there's like side rooms and like narrow map, I quickly scan over with my mouse over the mobs to make sure there is no rare monster in there, and I just keep going. I don't waste my time going into a side room to kill a bunch of white mobs. This will probably help you with clear speed as well if you're doing that. And finally, you know, just not really advice, but just kind of a big picture. I'd realistically say around 80% of maps currently in the game are what I'd consider relatively open and not a problem for minions. The minions, the reavers especially, will just plow through them. And all of this focus on reaver clear speed is not really relevant for a majority of the maps in the game anyway. And in my experience, as you can see in the showcases as well, even in the narrow or bad maps, when you know, sometimes get screwed by minion AI, you do. That it does happen. It happens a few times, but even when it does, you are realistically, you know, maybe adding 10 to 30 seconds of additional clear time to the map due to this annoyingness. You know, so instead of clearing 20% of your bad maps in 3 minutes, you might clear them in 3 minutes and 30 seconds due to, you know, bad minion AI. You know, big deal. Who cares, right? This is not PoE1. You're not clearing your maps in 30 seconds total. If you're adding 10 to 20 to 30 seconds, you know, on the bad maps, which, you know, is like 20% of them, it's not as big a deal as people make it out. And yes, it is annoying when it happens, but arguably it doesn't actually add that much to your clear time. And anyway, final point, I am sure that GGG are already working on a fix to this anyway, and it will be solved very soon. I'm sure the minion AI, and you know, it'll be fixed via maybe some implicit phasing added to the minions. Something will happen. I'm sure GGG won't leave it like this. So with that in mind, reavers will, in my opinion, definitely jump to be like S tier for mapping as well as bossing. Just a couple of changes, and you know, right now they're already very good. Like I'm trying to explain in this video, if you follow these instructions and you watch the showcases, they're already very, very good at mapping, and they will only get better when GGG fix this issue. So yeah, just to summarize before I really play the showcases now, I understand the frustrations. I really do. I run into those frustrations, but I think people need to decouple the feelings of frustrations from the verifiable results that the minions can provide. And I do think that they are much better than people give them credit for. Anyway, this is all I wanted to talk about today. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the showcases. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
What a delightfully sacrilegious creature.